Okay, good evening and welcome to Iyun with Benzion. Yevamos Daf number 90. Today, the Gemara makes a very fundamental chiluk, which seems to be accepted the halacha, that the Chacham have the ability to be oker davar min Torah, b'shei val tasa, but not bekum ve'esei, meaning a lot of cases. For example, shofar and lulav. They said if the first day of Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos, you don't blow shofar. Why? Because the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah. Because you might go to a bucky and not everyone knows how to blow shofar. You go to the bucky. You're going to carry down with sharabim. So therefore, they said they're worried about you're going to do a malacha daraisa on Shabbos. Chayav kar skila maybe. So therefore, they said they annulled it. They said don't blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah for everybody. Don't blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah. The same thing by lulav. And there's other examples on the top of Sadi Beis, 7 examples, a lot of examples. Chum said don't do it. Even include don't bring a Korban Pesach. The Rabbani said you're tamei, don't bring a Korban Pesach. Sheva al Tasa. And the Gemara says, what about Kum V'aseh? It's Kum V'aseh. They changed it to Oraisa. The Gemara says you only say that in Migdar Milsa when it's rampant Hafaras at Torah. You're knowing the Torah. Avodah Zarah, or bad things are going on, or Hellenization. The Gemara brings that they killed somebody for riding a horse on Shabbos, the time of the Greeks. There's rampant abuse of the Torah. So therefore, then Bekum V'aseh, they can give someone a punishment, even though he only violated Nizr Rabbanan on Shabbos riding a horse. They gave him skila, which is Bekum V'aseh, getting up and stoning the person, which is not mandated by the Torah. Bingder Milsa and Eliyahu at Har Carmel, he was allowed to bring on a bama, even though you're not allowed to bring on a bama. B'shas, it was usher to bring on a bama. Only the Beis HaMikdash can bring a korban, not on a bama. Outside the Beis HaMikdash, because of Avodah Zarah, he wanted to confront the Baal, the Obrei Baal, so he wanted to show them who the real God was, so therefore he was allowed to do it. But otherwise, only B'Shei Val Tasa. So I was in actually, there's someone else in here in Telson that gives us Daf Yom, an English Daf Yom. Someone gives a Hebrew and an English Daf Yom. An older gentleman, I don't know, 50s, 60s. He was giving his shir. I walked in the middle for Mincha today. I never listened to his shir. I sat down and listened to someone else giving a Daf Yomi shir. It's interesting to listen to somebody else give the Daf Yomi shir. I was definitely differences between him. He's like most Daf Yomi Magidi shir is very serious. It doesn't make even one half smile or crack. All my my thumbnails, I'm smiling, I'm joking around, having a good time. He's very serious. Also, one difference I noticed is that, as opposed to most of these people who don't know all these different, nuances in halacha, he's really asking questions and explaining things that only he would be bothered by. Most people wouldn't be bothered by. He's adding a lot of stuff. That's why a lot of these Daf Shirim go on for 45 minutes, an hour, because they don't just explain Pashup Pshat. They ask these like side questions that maybe Rashi or the article would ask, and they answer it just so you shouldn't be worried about it, but you weren't thinking about it anyway, so why are you putting it in there? Take a half an hour share, make it short and so sweet and to the point. But I was there, so I asked him a question. I had a question for him. I mean, this is an Iyun Benzion question, but I figured I'll pose it to him, see what he says. The Gemara makes a chiluk, sheva al tasa kum es. So at the end of the day, what's the difference? I already preempted him. I said, and if you'll tell me, sheva al tasa, because it's merely Chazal said don't do a mitzvah's essay. That's not as chomor as kum essay, which you're doing an avera, you're doing an isser essay, or you're doing a losa essay, you're chayav malchus. I said you can't say that chiluk because a couple of the things, Hazah and Arel on Sadi Beis is where they told you not to bring Korban Pesach, and chayav kares for not bringing Korban Pesach. So that's a lot worse than malchus. Kares is worse than malchus. It's definitely worse than isser essay. So you can't say that. Another guy in the shir, he's like, I don't understand. What is this thing with Kari? And I tried to explain to the other man. I mean, he didn't know what was going on. But the Maggid shir heard my question. He understood why I preempted his answer. What he was going to say. He said, I mean, of course, not doing something is not as bad as doing something. Like, of course. I'm like, but what's the difference? And he ignored me and he went on. He didn't have an answer to this. So, I didn't have an answer at that point, but I thought about it a little after. I left the room. I came up with an answer. And then I saw my mincha. So I went over to him. I tried telling him my answer, which is politically based also. And he started saying, kadosh, 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 like in Benzion they were saying. So he was trying to avoid me, whatever. He was trying to say he was dominating or whatever. He couldn't speak. But I stood there. I'm waiting for him to finish, whatever, whatever. He finishes. I'm still standing there. He's like, okay, I'm sorry. Like I didn't, like, so I'm like, let me explain to you. So I tried to explain to him. He didn't understand. Finally, after Mincha, I came over to him. I explained to him. And I'm going to tell you what I explained to him. I said like this. Sheval Tasa, there's a difference in politics between conservatives and progressives, right? Conservative people basically believe whatever we have, we shouldn't change unless there's a really, really good reason to change it. We keep it as status quo. And progressives are always like, no, if we have a little bit or we think a legitimate reason to change something, it's new, it's progressive, let's progress to the next step, even though there's not 100% sufficient evidence to go on to that next step. We have to go on to the next step. We have to change. The times are changing. We have to change automatically, like Biden says. I'm saying like whatever. A lot of people feel, we should do away with, petroleum and things like that, and go to, green solutions, electric cars and things like that. I'm not getting into politics here, who's right or who's wrong, but that's like known as a progressive agenda, meaning you just want to get rid of fossil fuels and move to that. There's other progressive issues, in terms of gender identity and things like that. There's a lot of, this politics. I mean, progressive versus conservatives is, this is old as anything, and that's basic politics. But I like just the Gemara is weighing in on it. The Gemara is saying that the Rabbanan have the ability to be conservative. Conservative means sheval tasa, meaning we have a mitzvah of tkiyah. They don't do it. They're not overturning a status quo. They're saying now don't do it. If you have a traditional Jew, traditional Jews are conservative. Traditional in Israel, they're called traditional Jews. In America, they're called conservative Jews, right? They tried not to eat chametz on Pesach. They tried to eat matzah on Pesach. It was a hard year for them. They have family. They're in a tough situation. They might eat chametz on Pesach. They might not eat matzah. They don't eat it. They're not going to say, oh, forget about Pesach. No, they say we couldn't do it this year. We couldn't. But we're not changing our standards. Our standards were to eat matzah on Pesach, so we're not going to change that. We couldn't do it. We weren't on the level to do it. We weren't able to do it. But progressives, it's different. When you're a progressive, so you're taking on a new identity. You're taking on a new position. And when you take on a new position like that, it's very hard to go back to the old position, right? So that when you're come to essay, when you're going ahead and uprooting something in the Torah and saying go do it in Avera, you're creating a new movement in the Torah. You're creating a new movement, and there's a lot of fuel fired by progressivism, and people take that, whether it's good or bad. I'm not going to weigh in on that. I'm not giving my political opinion over here, but progressives take things. That's just the way it is. Progressives get very fired up about it. They don't want to hear the other side anymore. Meaning, once they decided their way, that's it. They're not going back to the way. They have animosity towards the old way. So once you have animosity towards the old method, so that's going to be nisaker. The original takana is going to be uprooted. It's going to be uprooted. No one's going to want to go back to the original takana. As opposed to conservatism, if you don't do it 1 year, you don't blow shofar 1 year, no one's going to forget about shofar. And that's the lashon of the Gemara. The Gemara says, I showed him the lashon of this Gemara. The Gemara says very nicely on Tzadi Yom Beis. The Gemara says, sheval tasa, the Shalastan sheval tasa lo mi'aker. What does mi'aker mean? Aker is uprooted. Talk about uprooted. Lo mi'aker. Sheval tasa. If they're oker davar b'sheval tasa, it's not me'aker. It's not going to uproot the takana. It's not going to uproot eating matzah on Pesach. But if you say, instead of eating matzah on Pesach, from now on we're eating chametz on Pesach, right? Instead of eating matzah, you're allowed to eat chametz. You're not allowed to eat chametz. Now you're allowed to eat chametz, right? That's going to be me'aker. People are going to get progressive behind it. There's going to be fire to the fuel to the fire, and they're going to start, always believing that it's you have to eat. You're allowed to eat chametz on Pesach. We say normally you can't eat chametz, but now we say you can. Of course we can eat chametz on Pesach, right? Progressive Chazal recognize progressivism. It's a more heat. It's a more fuel. There's more fuel on the fire by progressives than conservatives. Conservatives are just playing it cool. They're not doing anything. Progressives, there's the fuel to the fire. Then it's going to be in the saker. It's going to go back. You're never going to be able to get back to the times when chametz was asur on Pesach. Hope you enjoyed today's shir. It gets into politics a little bit, but I think it's really a good explanation of the Gemara. See you tomorrow.